welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today we're going to be doing a first versus favorite video. So I did a post on Instagram a while ago, I think it was like over a month ago, where I followed the first versus favorite trend that I saw going around, and I posted about some authors and what book I read first from them and what was my favorite. And I wanted to do a video on it, and I chose an entirely different group of authors than what I included in that post. So if you want to see that post, go down, my Instagram will be linked down below. You can follow me on Instagram. But for now, we're gonna get into the video, and I have 6 new authors to talk about my first and my favorite from them. So the first one that I have is Katherine Moon. My first Katherine Moon book was actually Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. It was also my first reverse harem book ever, and we all know how that turned out. Reverse harem is now one of my favorite tropes, but I absolutely loved Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. I gave it 5 stars. I read it during a readathon, I think, and it was really popular, and I decided to pick it up, and I didn't really even know what I was getting into. If you don't know, this is a reverse harem book about a heroine who gets a job at a Rooksgrave Manor, where she ends up forming a harem and falling in love with 5, I think, paranormal men. And it's super interesting, it's super fun, it's so sex positive, and I really loved the heroine, so I actually ended up giving that book 5 stars, like I said, and that is the book that started my absolute love affair with Katherine Moon. She is one of my favorite authors now, and I have read many of her books, but my favorite one that holds a very dear place in my heart, it's probably one of my top favorite books ever, is Lola and the Millionaires. So Lola and the Millionaires is actually a duet. It is a reverse harem Omegaverse duet, and I couldn't tell you which one I liked better, like part 1 or part 2, just because I read them back to back, so I don't really even know where book 1 ends and where book 2 starts. But this one is, like I said, a reverse harem Omegaverse, and it is about a heroine named Lola who goes through a lot of trauma in book 1 in the series, which is Baby and the Late Night Howlers. I would really recommend reading Baby's story before Lola's, just because there is a lot of background on Lola in Baby and the Late Night Howlers. And Lola has spent her whole life dreaming of being an Omega. She is a Beta, and she feels like Omegas are like the special ones, and she wants to feel special. And so in Baby and the Late Night Howlers, she ends up going through a lot of trauma surrounding this. And in the beginning of Lola and the Millionaire, she is terrified of alphas. She just wants to hide and not be seen anymore. She used to want to be like the center of attention and get everyone to like notice her, and now she just wants to hide and not have anyone notice her. She just wants to go through life and just like ignore people. She is, like I said, terrified of alphas because of the trauma that she suffered, and she is finally trying to get her life back together, back on track, and she ends up getting her dream job and is kind of terrified of going to it just because there are going to be alphas in the building. But she works up her courage, and she's like, this is my dream job, and I'm not gonna let this trauma that I suffered like control my life. And so she goes to this job, and she ends up meeting a group of alphas and getting stuck in an elevator with them, actually. And she ends up falling in love with a group of alphas and also an Omega, and I think there's a Beta involved also, but a pack of alphas. And she goes through so much struggles of a journey of growth and of dealing with trauma. The way that Katherine Moon discusses trauma in this book just feels so realistic to me. It's not like everything is going forward and everything all works out. It's 2 steps forward, 4 steps back, and it's waves of, we have really good days and there's a bunch of good days in a row and I think I'm feeling really good and I'm so happy with my life, and then the next day it's, oh my god, I'm horrified, I'm triggered, I'm terrified, and I don't know how to go on. And I just absolutely loved the way that Lola dealt with that, and the way that her pack and the men that she fell in love with cherish her and love her. And it's just a really amazing duet. And if you haven't read Katherine Moon's Sweetverse. I really highly recommend it. I love almost every single book in the Sweetverse. I think I love every single book in the Sweetverse, so I would highly recommend it. And like I said, I would read Baby and the Late Night Howlers first, just to get a real background on Lola's story. The next author that I have is Devney Perry. I had to go back on Goodreads and like really search what was my first Devney Perry, and I'm pretty positive it was Tattered, which is the first book in her Lark Cove series, I believe. I think I've read almost all of Devney Perry's backlist at this point, so it was hard to like figure out what was my first Devney Perry. That is a lie. Oh my god, I just remembered how I discovered Devney Perry. Okay, so my actual first Devney Perry book was Riffs and Refrains. Oh my gosh, that's how I discovered Devney Perry. Okay. What I wrote down was wrong. It was not Tattered. It was Riffs and Refrains. So I am a huge Serena Bowen fan. I love Serena Bowen. She was one of the first authors that really got me into reading indie romance, and she ended up, I read everything that she wrote, and I have read everything that she's ever written. All of her romance books I have read. Still to this day, I'm on her ARC team. I love her books. And she did a collaborative series with Rebecca Yarros and Devney Perry, and that is how I first started reading Rebecca Yarros and Devney Perry, because I was like, oh, I want to read this series because I read the side characters in Serena Bowen's book in the series. So Devney had a character and Rebecca had a character. So I picked up Devney Perry's book and I absolutely loved it. So the series, I can't remember what the series is called, but it follows a group of musicians, and Devney's book, Riffs and Refrains, is about a female rock drummer. She came from this small town, and her family and this small town never really understood her. She had these big dreams of leaving the town and of being a rock and roll drummer. And she had a huge falling out with her family when she went to pursue her dream. And she also had a falling out with the man that she was in love with, her like childhood sweetheart, who stayed behind. They broke up. She broke up with him. She wanted to go and pursue music, and they had a falling out. So it's been years and years since she has been back to town and since she has seen this man and her family. And she comes back to town, I believe, for a funeral. Her grandmother, who is the only member of her family that she kept in contact with, has passed away. And she comes back for the funeral and gets confronted with her family and also with her childhood sweetheart, who is now a single father. And she has to deal with seeing her family, with seeing this guy who she still has feelings for, that all these feelings come back to the surface. And it was just a really, really beautiful book. And I remember being so incredibly attached to this book because my grandma passed away around the same time. And I cried while reading this book. It's one of the very few books that I've cried during because of the emotion of her talking about this love that she had for her grandmother, and my grandmother had just passed away. So that is my first Devney Perry book. Oh my god, I cannot believe that I forgot that book. So that's my first Devney Perry book. And my favorite Devney Perry book is going to be no surprise. It's Juniper Hill from the Eden series. This was one of my top favorite books last year or the year before. Oh my god, I can't even remember if it was 2023 or 2022, but I absolutely love this book with my whole heart. Okay, I'm really sorry if the angle changed a little bit. My battery just died, so I had to change my battery pack. But I love Juniper Hill with my whole heart. And if you don't know what this one is about, it is book 2, I believe, in the Eden series, and it's about a heroine named Memphis who is a single mother. She has just literally recently given birth. Her baby is like not even a year old, only a couple of months old, and she comes from money, and she is hiding who the father of her baby is, and she has had a disagreement with her family and has left her family and has moved to this small town in Montana to actually be a maid, a housekeeper at a hotel there. And she lives above the garage, in the apartment above the garage of a guy named Knox Eden, who is the brother of her boss at this hotel. And Knox is a grumpy hero. He's a chef, and he has his own scars in his past when it comes to children, and so he does not want to get close to Memphis or her baby, but they grow so close, and it is so friggin' sweet. And Knox, it will hear, like, the baby has colic or something and is like constantly crying at night, and Knox can hear it from his house, and so he comes and is like, give me the baby, let me try and soothe him. And it's so sweet to see Knox like fully soften for Memphis and for her son. And I just absolutely loved this book. Whenever I talk about this book, I always say it's not the big moments, it's the little things, the little everyday things that make this book so freaking sweet, and that still stands. It is just these everyday small things that just entirely made me swoon over this couple, and it is definitely my favorite Devney Perry book. The next author that I want to talk about is Candy Steiner. My first Candy Steiner book was The Wrong Game, and this is actually not a book that I love. So I think I gave this book 3 stars when I first read it. It is about a heroine who's going through a divorce, I think, or has recently gotten divorced, and she has season tickets to a sports game, and so she posts on her like dating app that she's looking for somebody to go to the games with, and she ends up meeting this guy, and he like pursues her. And I didn't love this book. So I actually stopped reading Candy Steiner for a while after this book, and didn't pick up her books again until I think I read the second one in the series and also wasn't a fan of this. And then I didn't pick up her books again until Fair Catch. Is that what that book is called? I think that's what it's called. Red Zone Rivals, her Red Zone Rivals series. I didn't pick up her books again until the Red Zone Rivals series, when I saw a friend talk at length about how good the Red Zone Rivals series was. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna give Candy Steiner another try. She seems so cool and I really want to love her. And so I decided to pick up Fair Catch, and then my favorite Candy Steiner book is Blindside. I love this book. It is also another one that ended up on my top favorite books of the year list. I don't remember what year it was, but I freaking loved this book. It is a sex lessons fake dating romance, and if you know me, you know that sex lessons is one of my top favorite tropes. If you can do sex lessons well, I will love your book. And this one is one of the best sex lessons books I have read. So this one is about Clay and Gianna, and Clay, his girlfriend has recently broken up with him and he wants her back. And Gianna has a crush on this guy at college. It's a new adult romance. And Gianna is the PR assistant for the football team at her college, and Clay is on the football team, so they know each other. And Clay proposes to Gianna that they fake date in order to make the guy that Gianna likes jealous and to make his ex-girlfriend jealous. And she's like, okay, let's try it. And then when Clay finds out that not only is Gianna like not ever been on like a date or anything, she's also a virgin, and he's like, you need some lessons. And so they have a sex lessons type arrangement, and Gianna is very bookish. She loves to read romance, and he reads her favorite romance books and reads the bookmarked spicy scenes that she likes to find out what she's into in order to teach her. And it is so good, and it's one of my top favorite books. It's amazing. I love it so freaking much. Candy Steiner knocked it out of the park with this one, and I just absolutely adore this book. It's so freaking good. Clay and Gianna are just like top tier, and I honestly need to reread it because just like every time I talk about it, I'm like, oh my god, I need to go reread it because it's just that good. I love this book. Love this book. And it's one of the reasons why Candy Steiner is on my authors that I have met, favorite authors that I have met shelf back here. If you didn't know, that's what this shelf back here is. I have pictures if I've met like some of my favorite authors I have them printed out. So there's a bunch on this shelf, and then there's others that are like around my room. But this red one that's behind me in every video, that's Candy Steiner. So the next author that I have is Megan Quinn. I've been reading Megan Quinn for years, many years, and my first Megan Quinn book was The Dugout. I believe I read this book in 2020, I think I read it in the beginning of 2020, and it's been a long time. I don't remember what this book is about. I know that it was a baseball romance, but that's about it. I don't really remember, other than that, what this book is about. But I have read many Megan Quinn books since then. I've read almost all of her books, I think. I think there's a couple that I'm still missing that I haven't read yet, but I've read a lot of her books. And this one was hard to choose a top favorite, because I always do like top 3 for Megan Quinn, because I have read so many of her books, and there isn't like one that's like my all-time favorite. But I have 2 written down that like always stick in my head as like top favorite Megan Quinn books, and they are See Me After Class and Boss Man Bridegroom. So Boss Man Bridegroom is a marriage of convenience romance with a boss and his assistant, a CEO and his assistant. That is one of my favorite things. I love a CEO assistant. That is one of my favorite tropes. I have read it many times ever since reading Brooklynaire by Serena Bowen. That is the book that made me love boss assistant. And there are so many of my favorite books that are boss assistant. Under the Stars by Laura Pavlov comes to mind. One of my favorite books, boss assistant. So Boss Man Bridegroom fits that so well, boss assistant. But then on top of the boss assistant, you have marriage of convenience, which is another one of my favorite tropes. So this book just all around went so freaking well. I loved it. So basically in this book, the heroine is the hero's assistant, and she learns that her grandmother is ill, and her grandmother very much wants to see her granddaughter get married before she passes away. And so the heroine goes and proposes to her boss and is like, hey, will you marry me? And the hero has his own reasons for accepting, and it's so fun, and in very Megan Quinn fashion. It is quirky, and the heroine especially is just like a very quirky heroine. It's very rom-com-y, like very like comedic, funny moments, and I love it. It's such a fun time. Definitely just like a good time read. The other top favorite that I have written down for Megan Quinn is See Me After Class. This one is a enemies to lovers teacher romance. So the 2 of them are both teachers, and the hero is, and this is also best friend's brother. So the hero in this one has been a teacher at this school, a high school teacher, for a long time, and he's on like the board of hiring teachers, and the heroine is getting hired to be a teacher, and he doesn't like her teaching style, but he gets outvoted and she gets hired anyway, and their classrooms are next to each other, and he is a very silent, lecturing kind of teacher, and the heroine likes to show videos. She likes to run around. She likes to make noise. She likes to get discussions going. She's a very like new agey type of teacher, and the hero is like, you're disruptive. I don't like your teaching style. And the 2 of them don't get along very well, but they're in the same type of friend group because he is her best friend's brother. And so they're constantly seeing each other, and there's this like enemies to lovers moment. There's a lot of tension, a lot of sexual tension going on, and it's so good. I love the Pride and Prejudice elements in this book. The heroine is a huge Pride and Prejudice fan, and so am I. So I love the way that the hero like works in Pride and Prejudice with him when they do actually get together. It's so good. And I just absolutely love this book, and definitely a top favorite of mine. The next author that I have is Mariana Zapata. I first read Mariana Zapata, I think in 2020 as well. It might have been 2019. And I saw Lacey. Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers is one of the first booktubers that I ever really watched. And she talked nonstop about Mariana Zapata. So I picked up Mariana Zapata and I picked up The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. And I still absolutely love that book, 5 stars. And that is a marriage of convenience boss assistant romance as well. And it's football and I really, really love that one. Definitely still 5 stars. And that is one of my top favorite Mariana Zapata books as still, but my #1 top favorite Mariana Zapata book that I decided to write down is All Roads Lead Here. I just had a huge emotional connection to the book All Roads Lead Here. I just loved that one. It really stuck in my head. So All Roads Lead Here is about a heroine who has recently broken up with her long-term boyfriend, gotten out of that relationship. It was not a good relationship for her. And she is kind of lost and she decides to go back to the last place that she felt really centered and home. And that is this town where she last saw her mother. When she was younger, her mother went on a hike and never came back from the hike, disappeared. And she never knew what happened. She was presumed dead and all those things. And so the heroine is just like, I need to go back to this town because that is the last time I really felt centered and happy that she can remember. And she rents this apartment above a garage, but when she gets there, she's greeted with a man with a gun who's like, why are you trespassing on my property? And she's like, I'm not trespassing, I rented this apartment. And he's like, no, you fucking didn't, this is my apartment. And it turns out that his teenage son rented her the apartment and there are no other places for her to stay in town. And so he very reluctantly agrees to let her stay for a short time, and then they end up getting closer and falling in love, and the hero Rhodes is so incredibly grumpy and I love it. I love the addition of the teenage son. He plays a big part in it and he's just like a really good side character. I really liked him. And I loved the heroine just like wanting a simple life and just trying to find a place where she's just comforted and okay and just centered again. And I really, really loved that. And I felt very emotionally connected to it at a time when I was feeling very emotionally uncentered. So love, love, love that book. Okay, the last author that I'm going to talk about for this video is Joanna Shup. I wanted to throw a historical in here and I was thinking Tessa Hale, but I could not decide on a favorite Tessa Hale book. So I went with Joanna Shup, who is another one of my favorite historical romance authors. And the first Joanna Shup book that I ever read was Rogue of Fifth Avenue. And this one is book 1 in her Fifth Avenue Rebels series, I think is what it's called. And I didn't love this book. I think I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't like a favorite historical. It was all right. I liked it enough to continue reading Joanna Shup, but it wasn't not like a favorite book. But my all-time favorite Joanna Shup book that I decided to go with is A Lady Gets Lucky, which is actually right here. Let me just grab it. A Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shup. I freaking love this book. Absolutely adore this book, even though it's mass market maxed size, which pisses me the hell off. But I love, love, love this book. This is another sex lessons book. Are we surprised? Probably not. So this one is about a hero named Kit and a hero named Alice. So Alice is trying to find a husband and she is trying to please her very overbearing mom. Her very overbearing mom keeps getting in the way of her talking to men, but Alice is very, very shy. And she ends up overhearing these women talking about how good Kit is with women. And she is like, ooh, he's good at talking to women. I wanna learn how to talk to men. But they're talking about he's very roguish. And so she very scandalously at night while they're all staying at this country estate for a party, goes to Kit's room, knocks on his door and is like, hi, can you teach me how to be better with men? And he's like, this is inappropriate. We can't do this. You are a nice young lady and I am very roguish and this is not going to work. I don't want to corrupt you. I don't want to ruin you. And she is very adamant that this is what she wants. And she knows that Kit wants something. And so she has the opportunity to offer it. And so Kit, unable to refuse her offer, agrees and ends up being like a seduction lessons. This one is less sex lessons and more like seduction lessons because it is historical, but it does get spicy. And I absolutely loved this. Kit is just such a good hero. Alice is just like very innocent and very shy in like when you first meet her, but then when she gets to know Kit, he finds out how different she is from other women and like how strong and confident and badass she is. And I love her and I love their relationship, and it's one of my top favorite historicals. I think it actually made a top favorites of the year list also. Not surprising. I mean, favorite authors, favorite books, so it makes sense that so many of them are on my top favorites of the year lists, but absolutely love this book. If you are looking for a really good historical, would highly, highly recommend The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shup. It is book 2 in a series, but I read it without reading book 1 and it made perfect sense, and book 1 is just not nearly as good, so highly recommend this one. But that is the last author that I'm gonna go with. I don't want this video to get overly long. It's probably already pretty long. But that's the last one that we're going to go with. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with my choices, and if you'd like to see a part 2 of this. I could do more authors. I have plenty more authors to choose from that I could do a first and favorites for. So let me know down in the comments, but that's gonna be it for this video. So like this video if you liked it, subscribe, stick around, see more content from me. Leave me a, is there just like a #1 emoji? Just leave me the like #1 emoji. I think there's one of those in the comments, but that's gonna be it. So I hope that you have the absolute best day. Bye.